I've been in the field of educational research now for 25 plus years, and a recent very positive development has been forming research practice partnerships so that we can make sure the research we do is very relevant for practitioners in the field. This kind of partnership has been at the heart of the Regional Educational Laboratory, or REL program, that's funded by the U.S. Department of Ed. We at REL Appalachia have been working to begin to build that student voice into the research and the technical assistance we do. We kicked this off with a conference that we did in Nashville, Tennessee, July 2016, in collaboration with two other RELs, REL Mid-Atlantic and REL Northwest. The conference itself focused on post-secondary readiness in rural communities. We made sure that all of the sessions that we offered featured three perspectives, that of researchers, practitioners, and students. And we'd like to share with you now some of the reactions from participants to that conference.
Students are the main stakeholders in the classroom. They're the ones that are in the classroom receiving the information. It's one thing to listen to teachers, which is incredibly important, but to listen to students as the main stakeholders in their education, as the people who will be receiving the results of the education, you have to listen to them. It's absolutely required.
How important do I think it is to have these three perspectives? I think it's absolutely important because researchers only bring that academic perspective sometimes, and having a practitioner to be able to talk about how can we apply that in a real world setting, without that sort of perspective, I don't think that we can really use the research. And then when we have students coming to the table too to share what it was like for them, it offers us a way to see and be inspired by the work and maybe more likely to use it, and work with our practitioners in that way. So I think all three of those perspectives are really, really important.
All too often, those groups are siloed. You have researchers working on research and policymakers and practitioners doing their work, and rarely, if ever, is a student voice incorporated into either of those. So to bring all three together is really exceptional. I think it's going to make the work of all three groups better.
Yeah, that research tells us a story, but it tells us a story about somebody or something. And in the case of what you're doing here, we're trying to understand and tell the story of a particular student or a student characteristic or a student process. Bringing these people together to have those joint conversations, if you want to call it that, it's really important because so often we don't talk to each other. We talk about each other, we talk at each other, but having that learning paradigm, the focus, and how we apply, how we use, how we search, and then how we in fact get involved with it is crucial to the growth, not only of the student, but also of ourselves as practitioners and researchers.
Like I said, being in the research world, I can get locked into the theory, and some things sound very good on paper, but when they're actually being implemented, it just doesn't jive with human nature. So hearing the real perspective, how things are playing out for the student and for practitioners is very valuable for me for even shaping my research in the future. What kind of questions do I ask, investigate? What things do I take into consideration in my methodology?
And I think there's a bit of a shift going on now to where we're taking it to a place where everybody's voices matter. I know in West Virginia, when we began to do simulated workplace, one of the big things with the instructors that was so important was they said the State Department's listening to us. And then the students are saying, my instructor's listening to me. And it's become a mutual respect.
I definitely am taking away inspiration to see these amazing students come here and the courage that they have to get in front of researchers and practitioners from around the country. It's impossible not to be inspired by that. And it makes me realize that our work does have a real impact.
One of the beautiful things about the REL program is we bring researchers, practitioners, and others together. And I think just having that with students just adds a richness so we can understand what people are experiencing about a program on the ground. We can see what are we learning from research, and we can hear practitioners talk about how research has informed their work and helped it improve. And so I think it's a real example of kind of partnership and how RELs bring people together in a really powerful way to advance knowledge and improve education.
there's so much positive, motion going on right now in post-secondary education research. And from my experience talking to students, they're looking at the right things. They're looking at all the complexities and the layers that go into, post-secondary education experience. But being able to compile all of that, to understand it, to contextualize it, within the realm of students, and then take that to back home to Kentucky, where we can begin to design a stronger research model and understanding what college readiness actually means on the ground for students. It's a very long-winded way of saying I'm really excited to connect with all these researchers and see where the research is going forward.